all-out thing that involves all of humanity. And this is what we're here for. And so what we're going to do, we're going to have a quick conversation, 50 minutes. After that, we're going to do Q&A for about 10 minutes. And then we'll do community announcements for like 5 minutes. And yeah, it should be cool. So I'm just going to start with Stefano and allow the panelists to introduce themselves very briefly. And take it away.
Hi, my name is Stefano Corazza. I'm the founder and CEO of Mixamo. We provide 3D characters and animations for developers and for VR.
Hello, I'm Tim Tatch of Boston. I actually am a lot of things. I develop a lot of VR experiences. I'm best known for co-developing the Matrix VR with 2 awesome other developers, Eric Bayer and John Dadley. I mean, he's Mixamo's awesome. But now I am the creative director of Rothenberg Ventures, and I was brought on to help run the world's first VR accelerator program called River. The application deadline has passed, and we will be announcing the 10 finals very soon, not today.
Hello, my name is Cliff Plumer. I mostly come from the film industry. I got involved with Oculus before there was an Oculus, and helped get them started. And I've been producing mostly live action VR content for the launch of Gear VR and what's to come from Oculus.
I'm Chris Hollenbeck, partner at Grand Ventures, one of Jay's partners, and we fund early stage companies. I focus specifically on digital media and software, and have the pleasure of sitting on Stefano's board, among a few others in the tech space and VR is an area that we have one investment and are considering and looking for others.
My name is Morgan. I also work at Rothenberg Ventures with Tipitap and focus on VR full-time at the moment, and have the pleasure of saying that the smartest thing I've done in VR so far was just advising Mike Rothenberg to hire Tipitap.
Sweet, thanks guys. So let's get this going. Why did you guys choose to be involved in VR in the first place? And yeah, take your time, think about it. But I'll start with Stefano and work our way over here. Let's try to be succinct and brief because I got a lot of questions to go through. We got some rabbit holes to get through.
So we're very interested in democratizing the ability of people to basically tell a story. And so all our work has been around allowing people to create characters and animate those characters, let those characters walk, but also talk and express and carry emotions because the characters are so important. And so when VR started, the main challenge that we saw there is how do we bring characters, like talking characters that I can interact with inside the VR experience. So it is a huge challenge because we are basically dealing with the uncanny valley problem, where in VR, unless things look perfect, they look creepy, and that's a huge challenge. And so also because of how VR is perceived, the shading, the parallax, the whole content, the shading of the content and the fidelity of the content has to be completely rethought. And so we are seeing a lot of VR companies that are using our content. We are still experimenting in different ways how to best represent that content and tell a story. And it's a problem that has not been solved yet. And there's a lot of experimentation around it. That's why it's so exciting. And because you have this incredible sense of presence in VR, if you can tie it with a compelling story, it's going to be emotionally even more powerful than watching that on a 2D flat screen. And so that is very intriguing, and there's a lot of potential there that we can harness. So that's why we got involved from the early stage, and we have a lot of experiments inside the company to try to understand what looks good in VR from a character perspective specifically.
So for me, I've always kind of viewed myself as a storyteller, artist. I started out drawing comics when I was in elementary school, like graduate doing some animation, video games, making movies, but really VR is the ultimate storytelling device, medium. It's the way it impacts people. I've probably given over 1,000 demos to people by hand at meetups just like this, to people that are novices, people that are really experienced with VR. The way they respond to VR is unlike anything else there is no other analog or comparison except for maybe dreams. And so I feel like, again, as a storyteller, this is the ultimate platform, the ultimate medium. As soon as I tried the DK1, even though it made me nauseous, I'm so grateful the DK2 worked much better. But I knew that this is exactly what I've always wanted to work with as a medium.
I'm glad to hear everyone saying storytelling, because that's clearly the key. I mean, there's been a lot of what we call them technology demonstrations of what VR is. But personally, I haven't seen a lot of stories yet. And what I did with a couple of friends is to put together a team of people from the film industry and game industry to do just that. How do you tell a story in VR? I mean, for those of you who have a Samsung Gear VR, we produced a piece called The Recruit. And so far, that's maybe the only piece I've seen yet that at least has a narrative story to it. Instead of just taking a camera, sticking in the scene and just letting the consumer just look around. I get asked a lot about how long will people wear these goggles for, and I don't think it's a technical issue. I think it's going to be a creative issue. If I can keep someone engaged in an experience by telling them a story, they'll feel comfortable with the hardware. So looking at a lot of what's going at a Sundance this weekend, there's a lot of cool experiences, but I don't see enough storytelling yet. So that's my interest. Most of it's on live action, which is even much harder to do than CG or gaming. But to me, that's what's going to really build up an audience, is when we can tell stories and take people to places that they can't get access to.
And Cliff and I sit on board of a company called Telltale, which really reimagined adventure gaming and bringing storytelling back into interactive and combining the great things about storytelling and linear content with the ability to make choices and drive your own experience of interactive. And so, our investment in Telltale was made a number of years ago, and that was kind of a stupid idea, and it's really worked because the storytelling is what engages people. And on the VR front, I'm come at it as a consumer, but also an investor who's looking for the next platform opportunity to bring, whether it's interactive or storytelling, or really the combination of those two things. So I bring that perspective to it, and I think it's just wide open territory, and so cool to see, and confusing as can be, because there's so much going on, it's moving so quickly, but that really is what makes up a good investment opportunity. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's the right time to be getting involved from my point of view.
So I'm definitely excited about storytelling too, and think it's a great time to get involved. I think the thing that really drew me to VR first from an investment perspective was kind of realizing that in my mind it doesn't really sit in the traditional disruptive tech vertical. It's really a paradigm shift, I think we've decided, and it's the next internet, the next mobile. And the thing that's exciting about that is VR touches everything in my mind. So cinema is going to be great, gaming is going to be great, but education is going to be great. You can learn a language in VR, or healthcare is going to be great. You can help cure diseases. And I think a lot of the killer apps have not even been recognized yet. So travel, tourism, education, those are the things that I think are really going to be the killer apps 5 or 10 years from now.
So I want to expand a little bit more on something Chris and Cliff have said and Morgan have said about how this is a good time to get involved in VR. And when you're sitting around a coffee table, or when you're sitting around a crazy horse and you're having investment talks, how do you tell your crazy horse? Come on, guys. How do you convince VCs that are on the fence about, how do you convince a VC that's on the fence, like, oh, I don't know about this VR thing? How do you persuade them to get involved? And I'll start with Morgan, and then work our way.
I think just plug them into an Oculus. I mean, everyone here still probably remembers that moment, even though everyone here is more thinking enough to probably realize that VR is going to be a huge thing for the last 6 months, or a year, or 2 years, or 40 years. So I think people just have to see the applications, and when you think about gaming or cinema, it's really clear. But when you show someone that you can help with pain management, or help herophobia or something like that. I think those are really the huge ideas that really sort of raise people's eyebrows, and they say, oh, I didn't think about that before, and that just sort of opens the floodgates for people to think about what you can do with the medium.
And your question was how do you get them across the line to do what?
To get involved, invest in VR startups, so on and so forth.
Yeah, so I hope I'm answering the question. From my point of view, it is so early. There's so much going on that it's got to be, I have to be convinced that whoever I'm talking to has the flexibility and ability to adapt and change, because you know that product and business plan, a great thing on PowerPoint that we see tomorrow is going to be so different, because everything's going to be so different in 2 or 3 years when it really comes to commercial fruition. So I just look at kind of smarts and facility with dealing with change.
I'd say VR is still very, very new. I keep reminding people, if I mention the word Oculus to you, this time last year, the majority of people have no idea what the hell I was even talking about. So it's all really new, and there's no rules or standards yet. So I kind of encourage people to experiment with the platform. There's no way anyone can walk in and say they're the VR expert and they've solved all the problems. We're just starting to do that. I mean, to the earlier point, it's a visual medium. Show, to me, that's how you're going to sell something. You just show, an experience, a piece of technology that just hasn't been done before. It sells itself. You're not, in my opinion, going to sell a concept or a business with a business deck. This is just actually showing something that hasn't been done before, and it's all available to do. I mean, what I give Oculus a lot of credit is promoting an open community. So all the tools and tech are out there to try and experiment, and then, again, depending on what sort of content or tech you're developing, there's plenty of holes. There's plenty of things to figure out. Just identify it and be able to present it.
Yeah, I guess I just reiterate a lot of what these guys say, but really the challenge is build something and build something great. Like right now, like a lot of the big players, they aren't going to move into VR yet because there's not enough audience and blah blah blah. But that's when they're looking is the time for like little guys and independents to really be creative, innovators, to really work hard, build something amazing, and build that 1 million person audience. Like the audience isn't going to come unless it's good experiences. So it's kind of up to us, developers out there, and anyone else to just work on these ideas and build it. Don't, again, like they say, you have to experience it. A pitch deck won't do it. Hand waving gestures and pantomime. No, you have to build an amazing. And please make it at least 75 hertz and don't make me sick. Thank you.
It's interesting because it looks like VR not only changed a lot of paradigm, but also the fundraising one. Because we go from like PowerPoint to the Oculus, right? So that's a major achievement, I think. And the challenge is basically there's no audience, right? So everybody in VR is now building something where there's no audience, there's no device, there's all distributed. So from one side, that's a problem because you can't say, oh, we're going to monetize X amount of people and we're going to make this money. But on the other side, it's an open field for everybody. So it's a place where the beauty of your experience may draw people to invest without having to prove that you have a user base that will jump on it because there's not a user base right now. So it's a little bit like the Wild West.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your splendid answers. Curious to know this thing that's been circling inside my mind. So the success of VR sort of hinges on VR going from the early adopter enthusiasts to the masses, the mass market. And I wonder, what are your thoughts as to how and what will it take for this medium to cross that chasm from the enthusiasts, the crazy like me, you're not crazy, but to the person, like my grandma. And I'll start with Morgan and work my way back to Stefan.
So content is king, right? And that's why we're sort of at this interesting chicken and egg problem right now for VR, is there's no clear platform, there's no 10 million devices out there, there's gears out there, there's DK2s out there, but it's tough for developers to really see the path forward, right? So you just have to, I think, believe as a content creator that every day that you spend on VR right now is hugely valuable, because anyone who's been developing for Oculus for months or years, you have such a huge leg up, because building in VR is super hard, right? And a lot of people, I mean, I was at the Samsung Developer Conference, and I'd say 80% of the developers there were probably hearing about VR for the first time when Samsung was talking about it in the keynote. So the fact that you're in this room right now means that you've got a huge leg up on this industry. And if you're building and demoing, that's even better. So I think the thing to get people involved is just build really phenomenal, amazing experiences, so that when this really hits the mass market, which it's going to, you know, in a year or so, like a freight train, that there's really experiences that people are super excited to plug into. So that, and just keep demoing to all your friends. And if it takes 1,000 Matrix jumps or something like that, you know, just keep at it, because there's really nothing more rewarding right now in VR, in my mind, than actually seeing someone experience it for the first time, because it's hilarious and awesome, and YouTube reaction videos are great.
I guess I'm I really have no idea. And so when I talk to folks, I hope they're focusing, because my wife's not going to use this for a long time. And to the extent that someone came to me and said, we're going to hit the mass market, we've got it figured out, I would say, I'll tell you what, rather than mass market in year one, how about something in a focused area that you understand, that you're passionate about, and you find a passionate group that can really engage with your content and grow from there. Because I have no idea what is the content, what type of interface, other than I know these things are going to be out there, the content's going to be available, but what gets people's change, I mean, you're talking about taking people's leisure time or professional time, I guess, education time away from something else. And I can't identify what exactly it is that pulls you or millions of people.
Just in my opinion, with Oculus gear, well, Oculus, and especially with Crescent Bay coming, I think the early adopters will naturally be gamers. I mean, that's Oculus's background, that's what they're focusing on. You know, that's a given market. But more to your question, I think for a potentially broader audience, it's mobile. And, you know, hats off to Google with their little joke last spring, but you know, the first million people to experience VR is going to be through cardboard, not Oculus. So that creates, I think, a lot of opportunities in the short term, and I think mobile is the short-term platform. And as Oculus starts getting product out there, and Sony and Microsoft and others, initially will be gamers, but that's just going to enable everyone who's experimenting in mobile first, you're still going to have a head start on those platforms as well. So just again, in my opinion, I'd say the immediate opportunities are all on the mobile side.
I think the way I look at it, or the way we look at it around Rothenburg, is also understanding that there's not going to be one killer app for everyone. It's just like for television, right? Like some people like reality shows, some people like drama, some people like sci-fi. And so VR, we just need to build enough of these different types of experiences to grab as many different types of people as possible. And we love the fact that, yeah, there's VR for healthcare, VR for enterprises. Just think about how will VR transform what you're currently working on. If it's not VR, how will it make it better? Because chances are, it will make it better. And so think about, you know, as we're going through day to day or building whatever you're building, like think about the big ideas and how VR won't just be, oh, this is cool, or this is nice, or gosh, I need to have this, or this couldn't have existed without VR. And those are the experiences that are really going to help make it mainstream, or at least at the forefront of empathy and storytelling and enjoyment, entertainment, education, blah, blah.
I completely agree, and thinking of, I think everybody want to try this once. So even you know, a grandma wants to try. Oh, let me try this Oculus on. We've seen some funny video on YouTube about that. I think the challenge is more: is this going to be a meaningful experience? Is it going to be sticky? Something that I want to keep doing? And so there are a lot of beautiful verticals that will be filled up over time. And the first one that I saw super clearly, for example, was one of those meetups, the Tint Brush application. So there are millions of people in the world that love to paint, But painting in 3D in VR is phenomenal. So if I'm already a painter, now I want to do it that way. And so there's going to be a lot of these verticals that will unlock audiences. They will basically add up to the total that VR is going to do. So I think there's going to be thinking about those verticals and addressing them with a great user experience. I think it's going to make a lot of sense.
Thank you again, gentlemen, for your awesome answers. So I want to shine a mirror on the VR community itself and VR as a medium itself, because what I want to identify is the Achilles heel of virtual reality as it stands. And I want to get you guys' opinion as to what is that Achilles heel and what can be done to improve it so as to take a little look. And we'll start with Morgan, and no, we'll start with Stefano and work our way back.
I think one of the challenges is that you have to put something on your face that blocks you from the surrounding environment. So that has a lot of like negative connotations socially. So I think other solutions that may generate the VR feeling that are less invasive, have less cables, and are still immersive, I think that would be a big step forward, other than avoiding people getting sick, which is something that nobody likes. I think that's the first big obstacle that we need to get everybody on a playing field where people are comfortable doing it and it doesn't block social interaction.
That's it. The two biggest problems for VR right now for blocking mainstream adoption is the motion sickness that was kind of brought up, and it's definitely Oculus has made great strides where now the technology won't make people sick, but it's up to the designers to not design shaky cam roller coasters all the time, and understanding again like what's the translation. And a big part of that's connected to the second problem, which is input. So right now there is like Oculus hasn't really explained what, like everyone's hinting and guessing, but no one really knows what the mouse of VR is going to look like. And there's companies that are doing amazing things like 6 Sense, and it's just about figuring out what those inputs are going to be, and then how we're going to interact with the world, the virtual world.
Again, a lot of what I've been focusing on is live action video for VR, which is, in my opinion, a hell of a lot harder to do than all CG or gaming. So just being able to shoot in a live action scene is extremely hard. Now, there's really, you can get a bunch of these GoPro rigs out there and go and shoot something. I'm working with a company, Jaunt, that's built a rig and continues to improve on that. But taking a 360-degree camera or rig or a bunch of GoPros and go out and shooting it, then stitching it, the whole process is still extremely difficult. So I think there's a lot of opportunities technically to how to make doing 360-degree spherical video a lot easier to do, because I think video is going to drive the growth of VR, further than gaming.
In the exposure I've had, companies with VR, the thing that it frustrates me, but it concerns me, is the idea that everything's better with VR, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's got great use cases, but the idea that gaming's broken, TV's broken, movies are broken, education's broken because it hasn't had VR, I think is incorrect. I think it's about finding places where, especially at the early stage, where VR gives you that aha moment that, oh my God, I can't believe this is amazing, but that's not everything. So that's my concern, is the attitude that just because it's VR, it's going to be so awesome.
I'll just echo a few things that were said earlier. I think for me there's sort of 3 big things that are still very big roadblocks right now. One is sort of the visual technical challenges around head tracking and things that the improvements are being made very rapidly, right? So I think that's going to get solved. I think the second is also input. I think that's a huge pillar, and there's awesome solutions like 6 Sense, but that's not going to be the answer for everything. And the third I'll just sort of throw in there is audio. I think audio is a huge part of immersive VR, and a lot of people appreciate that, and a lot don't. I mean, a lot of developers I know who I think build really stellar experiences would say it's half of it, so that it's just a really tough problem. And they're all sort of things that we're going to look back 3 years from now and have a much clearer hindsight view of oh, of course, that was the path. But it's not obvious at all right now. So anyone who solves those things in a big way is going to be in a great spot. And then just sort of the conclusion of all that is, again, VR is really different. It's really hard. Storytelling is tough, input is tough. The technical stuff will get solved, but it's not quite there yet. So it's fun to think about.
Thank you again for your answers. So moving on to the next question. If I'm a founder and I have a software startup, a VR software startup, or a VR hardware startup, how do I impress you? How do I, what are the sets of things or the pattern of things that a successful founder does to impress a VC, especially in a medium that is very sort of nascent? What sorts of things are you looking for? And I'll start with Morgan and work my way down to Stefano.
Have a demo. Have a good demo, I guess. And I mean, it's really fun for us to see exciting new applications of VR. So if you're doing something in an underserved market at the moment, like education, for example, that's probably going to be automatically exciting. But it's also just building really quality experiences. Like Tibbs had said before, it's really tough to convince people that VR is going to be the next thing if you're showing them a shoddy product, basically. I think that's part of the risk of Google Cardboard, for example, and I definitely appreciate that it's getting VR in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people, but those experiences have to be really, really high level, and that's why I love, just as an example, I love demoing with the gear, because I think it's the first really, truly excellent mobile solution that we have. So I think it's just taking advantage of the tech that's out there and, yeah, coding in 75 frames or more.
Well, by way of example, I invested in Servios, and what compelled me about them were the demo was awesome. The people seemed to really, really intimately understand the market. They were passionate about the market. They had confidence. Maybe they were a little overconfident, but they also understood that they weren't going to do it all themselves and they needed partners. And so just that whole package of smarts, passion, great demo, and my belief that they can be sort of flexible got me excited to work on
I would say have a team and some level of expertise in what you're trying to do. Don't be a software engineer coming in saying you want to be a filmmaker. Have some background that gives you some automatic credentials that, for any of these people that are going to write a check, they want to know that you can execute. So build a team around you and leverage any degree of expertise that you have.
And then just a little bit more about what kinds of demos. Again, we're looking for the things that are like, this needs to exist. I see this and it's like, yeah, this couldn't exist anywhere else except for in VR, or wow, this is going to help the world in so many ways beyond just what people originally thought VR would be for, which is just gaming. And so, I mean, if you come up with things that, again, just push the bar or move the conversation forward in ways that other people haven't, that's the stuff that really gets us excited.
And I think VR is intrinsically interdisciplinary, so having like understanding of the story, the art side, the technical side, and the psychology of the actual person experiencing it, I think is also very, very powerful, because it's quite different, and quite complex. So it's a factor that, at least in our partners, we always look into that. If there's a team that has the depth and the experience to actually understand all the way A to Z, the user experience, not just building the technology.
Thanks again. Can you help me define success? What does success mean in this new medium? Like in the first year, what is success? And then this might be a fool's errand, but what does 5 years into the future look like? What does success look like then? See what I'm saying? Weird question. And I'll start with Morgan.
From an investing perspective or market perspective?
Yeah, let's do your perspective and then Stefano, your perspective.
Cool. So a year, I think it's just, again, kind of repeating myself, but just sort of building really great things. We're still in this 1 year period at least where just building awesome content is king. And beyond that, 5 or 10 years from now, I have no idea. I hope there's hundreds of millions of headsets out there, obviously, and 5 years from now, the tech is going to be ridiculous. absolutely mind-blowing and blow anything today completely out of the water, but that just means I have no idea.
I'll echo, no idea. Build a great team and over-deliver on what you promised on day one of that year.
I think in some regards, VR and AR kind of go hand in hand. There's some things we need to solve in VR first before AR is a reality. So, you know, I can look, I mean, VR is still at its infancy and it's going to get better. And I think AR is going to succeed on what we build on from VR. So I think this is just the beginning of a long run.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, right now, it's still, even though there are a lot of people here interested in investing in a lot of VCs here, there still hasn't been a lot of investments made in VR yet. And so for any team that's building VR, just realize that it's not like frothy and ridiculous. It's not like, you know, mobile or SaaS or any of these other things. You gotta be lean, you gotta be scrappy, especially in this year and the next year, and until we reach the millions of headsets. But prepare, build, again, with great tools like Mixed Mode Unity, Unreal. You know, you don't need huge teams to do amazing things, and just work on those amazing things, but be smart about how you do it.
So maybe a good metric for our first year success is survival.
That works. So the next question is, if I'm a VC, and you guys have sort of hinted at this already, but I wonder, like, what is the mentality that I have to get in, you know, that I have to put myself in order for me to thrive in this new industry? Because, you know, I wonder if the person who's a VC who wants to make money next year, you know, I wonder if that's the right mentality to have. I want to sort of expand on what you think that mentality is. I'll start with Morgan again.
I think right now we're still at the stage where, again, building really quality things is extremely difficult. So I think just being in a development environment or a prototyping environment for hardware and just doing it every single day and realizing how tough it is just going to give every single company that's working on this right now a huge leg up, because 5 years from now, all the best practices will clearly be known, but right now, effectively, none of them are. If someone tells you they've developed the best UI in the world for VR, no way, that's impossible, you're insane. It just started. So who knows, there's gonna be 10 different good answers to that, and it'll be obvious in the future, but for now, just play around as much as you can, because you're gonna learn something new and valuable every single day.
And if you were raising money and you had the choice, and I understand that, you know, raising money is difficult, so maybe people don't have choices. Were you to have the choice, don't take money from someone who thinks they're going to make money in year 1, or year 2, or maybe year 3. And there have been maybe 1, maybe more big outcomes, but those are, you know, those are the exception that proves the rule, that it's going to take some time. And venture investors should be in it for trials and tribulations along with you. So I guess that's answer number 1. And answer number 2 is, at the early stage of anything, incredible frugality, raise as little as you have to prove, and then once you've proved, you'll raise more. But the frugality piece is what gets you to Stefano's point of survival, and it's super critical right now while things change. Great opportunity, but it's so dynamic. You don't want to blow your wad on something before you're absolutely convinced that it's going to work.
I totally agree. You have to be extremely careful who you choose to take money from. And like Chris is saying, you're not going to see a return in this industry for years to come. So you have to be very, very careful who you partner with, because that's what you're signing up with. And if you have someone, you know, who's hanging over your head looking for a return, you're going to fail.
Yeah, and again, like, we're up here, we're early stage investors, right? Like, so we think 5 to 10 years for the lifetime, at least, like, you know, when we're thinking seeing money back. We're not thinking this is going to be a quick buck in any means, but we're in it for the long haul. We believe in this vision, and it doesn't start because these problems take that much time to solve, and so we got to start that process. So why we're here.
Yeah, plus one more, Chris said, when we started in 2008 and having animation as an online service was something people were looking at me like, what are you talking about? And so definitely you have to prove that patient money works, and also long-term commitment is key. So finding VCs that have domain expertise is the most important thing, probably because they know the industry and they know there's not going to be a return in 6 months. And so they know what's coming in the future, maybe in some cases even more than founders do, because they have seen a lot of companies. And so it's important, this domain expertise, I think, is really important, and it's long-term commitment.
So we have 5 minutes left, and we're going to have to cruise through these 2 last questions. So what is at stake here? I mean, what is, because we sort of trying to hit at the Achilles heel, what it's going to take to get to that mass market. But if VR is successful, what does that mean? Like what? And if, to be more specific, can we start talking about what are the potential profit margins of a successful VR software startup? Too early. But so what does it mean? What's at stake essentially? What do you guys think is at stake? Why is this important? Stefan, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because basically the whole monetization ecosystem of VR doesn't exist at the moment. So we don't even have the basement of the house basically. And I think the first floor is hardware, which is still not out there. The second one will be middleware software that enables people to have devices and all that kind of stuff. The third floor of the house will be probably content, which maybe even another magnitude bigger than the other 2 floors. And then once that is locked and there's an experience, then monetization and all this stuff comes afterwards. So I think it's really hard to predict now what the mechanism will be. There's definitely we see a big opportunity on the content side, also because it's really hard to make content for VR. And so when something is so hard, then usually there is a lot of value added once it can deliver the experience that you want. So, for now we're just looking at the 3rd floor, and it's already really far on the horizon. So I don't know afterwards.
I think VR for me represents a lot of ultimate way to communicate, especially for knowledge and empathy and understanding. So when people look back historically, when we got books and print, we could communicate in these ways. It opened so many doors. When we got international travel, it opened so many doors. The world got smaller and